version. But when I was very little, I took it in to school for show and tell, and I did not come home with it, so I'm assuming a classmate stole it. I don't remember, but yeah, it got lost in the sands of time. So now I just have some copies that I've replaced them with. So the thing about Shirley Barber is the pictures. They are, like, look at this little strawberry basket of strawberries. It's just absolutely divine. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous book. And this is called The Enchanted Woods. T-H-E. Enchanted. Enchanted. E-N-C-H-A-N-T-E-D. Woods. W-O-O-D-S. The Fairy's Tale. The Fairy's Tale. The Enchanted Woods. Can you see the gold? Can you see the little gold flits of magic fairy dust? They're really, really pretty. Words and Pictures by Shirley Barber. Look at this. Cottage by the Woods. Oh, I love it so much. I love it. I love everything about this picture. The thatched roof, the little girl with her toys, the cat sitting there, the basket already, little pixies down here, and strawberries, and this elaborate frame. Oh, it's so nostalgic and beautiful and lovely and wonderful and pretty and colourful and everything. I love it. Alright, so one warm, sunny day, Sarah Jane wandered into the woods to play with her toys and look for wild strawberries. So beautiful pictures. This one's my favorite. This woman telling this little pixie to shush, because they're all hiding, because they are watching Sarah Jane. But when she stopped to play under a tree, she had a strange feeling that she was being watched. My heart. Then, to her surprise, she glimpsed a procession of fairies winding through the trees. Some were quaint and impish, and others were the most beautiful creatures she had ever seen. She followed them as they made their way deep into the woods. Now she is watching them. I love this frame. The trees, all of the fairies, imps, critters, strawberries. Look at these two. They're so cute. It's the little bits, little details like that just, even as a child, just make my heart sing. I used to dream about this, like daydream, that I was Sarah Jane and I would go inside a fairy spring mushroom and get carted off just like this. Suddenly, the fairies ran out from behind the trees and began to laugh and dance. Around her, Sarah Jane, they cried, "You are needed in fairyland. Now that we've got you in our fairy ring, we can take you with us." When they waved their magic wands, and Sarah Jane felt herself this fairy lore, fae lore, but a fairy ring is a ring of mushrooms, and that is a portal to fairyland. Wow, double page spread. She was now no taller than the fairies, and felt as light as thistledown, as light as thistledown. The fairies took her gently by the hands, and together they flew up above the treetops and out over a shimmering sea. They landed on the shores of a strange and beautiful land. The flowers were taller than they were, and huge butterflies waited to greet them. Soon a messenger arrived from the fairy palace. "Sarah Jane," he announced, "the fairy king and queen have been told of your arrival, and they would like to see you now." So the fairies sat Sarah Jane on the back of a butterfly, and together they flew over a lake towards the fairy palace. I really like this little butterfly with the trumpet, heralding their arrival. The king and queen welcomed Sarah Jane and told her why she was needed in fairyland. "Our daughter is to be married to a prince from a neighbouring kingdom," said the queen. "We need the presence of a mortal to ensure their good fortune and happy marriage." "Yes," said the king, "you will bring them good luck." So you can see just here is another fairy telling these two little fairy children to shush, shush. And she looks so cheeky. I love that so much. Look how cool this is. There he is. My little heraldy dude. Soon it was time for the wedding. The chatter and laughter of the guests grew quiet as they gathered to watch the prince and princess exchange their wedding vows. So nice. And here we are at the party. I like this scene too. After the wedding, a magnificent banquet was held in a glittering hall overlooking the lake. Everyone, including Sarah Jane, feasted on the finest delicacies fairyland had to offer. I just want to jump in with another bit of fairy lore here, which is don't eat anything when you go to fairyland, because if you eat the food in fairyland, you can never leave fairyland. But that doesn't seem to be present in this book, but just a little bit of ominous fact there for you. So in this book, I like two things that I used to always dwell on. One was this little dude here, this sneaky little dude who was eating all the snacks underneath the table, minding his own business and not talking to anyone. Relatable, love that little dude. And I also really love how in love I thought these two prince and princesses were, mainly because she has her hand on his chest. I just thought that was like the most romantic thing I had ever seen in my little 7-year-old life. also love the band over here. They're all grasshoppers and bugs playing the trumpet and the harp and the violin and the bells. Little piano man up the top. So cute. When the banquet was over, it was time for the prince and princess to leave. Together they descended the golden stairway as their guests cheered and showered them with rose petals. Now the detail I loved on this page, obviously, because I always have a detail, was in fact this little cherub here, this little girl with her frog friend. Look at them. They're so excited about the prince and princess. So nice. I love how the illustration is so incredibly busy. There's so much in it to see. And so beautiful. Its little golden flecks and elaborate scenes. They were carried away to their new home in a beautiful carriage drawn by a flight of dragonflies. And just look at those dragonflies' faces. Such great faces. Like, they've got attitude, man. Love it. And then this is the classic, most beautiful page. Obviously, it's the last page. It's the crowning glory. Now it was time for Sarah Jane to return home too. The fairies flew with her over the sea and back to the fairy ring in the woods. Fairy ring of mushrooms. I was right. They waved their magic wands, and once again she became her normal size. Goodbye, Sarah Jane, they said, dropping light kisses upon her cheek. You will always be our special friend. Sarah Jane picked up her basket and toys and wandered home. She had nothing to show for adventure, but to her family's surprise, her basket was now overflowing with small, delicious strawberries. They were a gift to her from the fairies, a sign to show she really had been to fairyland. So gorgeous. And that's it. That was the beautiful Enchanted Wood, The Fairy's Tale by Shirley Barber. I also just want to, real quick, before my battery dies, say that this little girl, Sarah Jane, is wearing this red velvet dress. And when I was little, all I wanted for a very intense period of time, all I wanted was a red velvet dress. Bless you. Was a red velvet dress, like what's under her apron. I didn't care about having the white bit on top, but the red velvet dress was all I wanted, and my wonderful, wonderful, amazing family with the long sleeves and the feely velvet, they got it for me. So they got it made for me, which is even more amazing, really. It was absolutely brilliant. I missed a page. I think I missed a page. That's why I was like, what about the fairy ring lore? Here we go. Eventually they came to a big old tree, and under the tree was a ring of mushrooms. It was a magic fairy ring, but Sarah Jane didn't see it until after she had stepped inside. She stared at it, puzzled, and wondered what it was. Yes, this is why I feel like I imagined that scene. It's because I do remember it. It's real. I'm not crazy. Fairy rings are real. I know every time I say this one's my favorite, but seriously, point into the woods. I think I'm gonna have to do a bedtime story about this. About going into the woods and finding a fairy ring. It is decided. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this beautiful picture book from my distant past. I definitely enjoyed reading it to you. Alright. I hope that this relaxed you in some way. Okay. If you've read this book or you also went through or are going through a Shirley Barber stage, which I low-key kind of still am, I love it.